Welcome, Craig. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks, Brenden.
So I really wanted to have a conversation with you about what QCA is really doing differently to drive a new philosophy into the market around how to execute projects. So can you talk a little bit about serving as the main automation contractor when it comes to ports and terminals and what that means to you?
Yeah, so we've been working with a lot of miners who typically are either involved or own the ports for many years, and they're actually quite progressive in this space. They're often shipping billions of dollars of mine materials on a yearly basis, so their cost of downtime could be upwards of $10 million a day. So when it comes to project delivery, it's really important to have the system thought through and really have someone owning it, right? Because you have this, they might be spending $1 billion. We've worked on projects of that size where we operate as the main automation contractor. And what that does is it gives us a seat at the table with the big multidiscipline engineering companies, the construction partners, and really what we're able to do is define a philosophy for how the overall site will operate. And then what we use that to define the automation design documents that go out to all the different OEM equipment, balance of plant, automation, information systems. What we do is we manage all that kind of stakeholder alignment, and we take ownership for the system. We're able to simulate and test the system holistically off-site, so we know how everything's going to work, all the problems are dealt with, as many as possible at least, before we hit the field. And that allows us to execute very quickly in the field, often cutting down commissioning times 6 weeks or more, and that's millions of dollars to these owners.
Do you see a difference in project execution when you are serving as a MAC and you have a seat on the table or at the table very early on compared to maybe where you come in later stage and you're just serving more of an integrator type role?
When we take on a MAC, we're really under a lot of pressure to deliver because really we're the risk mitigation factor, and we sign up for some very aggressive schedules, and that makes our ecosystem very important. And Rockwell, your distributor ecosystem, as well as our partners that we use to build e-houses and different pieces of the solution, they're all part of that, right? And these are people we've worked with for decades and we trust, and we know that if they say they're going to do something, then they're going to follow through on it. Whereas if you run a competitive bid process and you pick kind of different people and you try and put something together, that ecosystem is uncertain and it adds a lot of risk. So if we're going to sign up for these aggressive schedules as main automation contractor, we need to know we can deliver, and we need to know who our partners are that are with us.
How do you go and develop trust within this ecosystem? And does that impact who you end up using to bring alongside you and in terms of partners and vendors along the way?
We're very fortunate to have some very large players in North America that we've been working with for decades that trust us and sole source us to do this work. So when we're talking to another customer, maybe in another country, we'll actually bring them to see one of these customers and see the operation. I think seeing is believing. People see the art of the possible. They talk to all the different stakeholders involved because everyone has a different kind of unique perspective on it. And then that trust is actually built very quickly when it's like peer-to-peer talking about something like this. We typically don't, sign up for a big job with somebody new until we understand, are they going to follow through on what their promises are. And, we work a lot with contractors as well who sign up for LDs and other, serious financial penalties. So we're part of that, right? We're back to back. So if we don't trust the people we're working with, we can't commit to the outcome that the project needs. So we used to bid a lot of infrastructure work in the public sector, and I think COVID kind of destroyed the competitive bid approach in my eyes. It takes, first of all, it just takes time, right? It takes a few months to put together some specs, longer probably if you're doing the job right. It takes 5 or 6 months to run a competitive bid process. It takes another couple of months to make a selection, and by the time you've done that, you've lost almost a year. Inflation's probably could have ruined any cost advantage there is.
Faster time to market is such an important piece of the puzzle here. And QCA has a unique approach to go and shorten these project schedules and drive faster time to market. Can you talk about how you approach that as a company and what systems you put in place to make that happen?
I think, that the right philosophy is to, choose your partners early choose people you trust. Customers want to expand or they want to build, but they don't always know like what to do, right? So they hire a consultant and they're not always experts at the industry. So what my company brings to the table is, we do mining, we do transportation, we build infrastructure like water plants and that. And we're experts at that. We're this consultant that looks to drive basically practical engineering. Is whenever you have these big projects, there's a lot of big companies that are designing pieces in silos. And really engineering is this rule-based pursuit where we follow rules so we don't make mistakes and blow things up. So people all add a margin of error. But if you have 10 silos and everyone's adding a margin of error, that all accumulates, and all of a sudden your power distribution systems are twice the size of what you need. You're overbuying all this infrastructure, then you got to pay to install it, then you got to pay to maintain it for 30 years. Our approach is really based on early involvement, where we control those details, all the interoperability. We make sure all the systems are fit for purpose, and really that it's extra money spent up front, which a lot of people don't like to do, the public sector especially. But it really drives out value, by de-risking the project execution, and then obviously lowering your operations and maintenance costs for the life of the facility, which is huge savings compared to anything you would save in the front end.
We like to think about main automation contractor in the digital age and the modern Mac and what that means. How do you go and use tools and digital tools to really shore up faster time to market and work within your internal team to take things out of the physical world and into the digital world?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have full simulation environments. These are 3D environments. Like for example, if we're building a ship loader machine, it's a very complicated machine that loads a Panamax boat, and everything is simulated and tested up front. But the stakes are so high. So what we do is we'll have a 3D environment where we can actually import the general arrangement of the machine mechanically, and then from there we can import designs of all the different vessels that they might load, because there could be 4 or 5 or 6 different types of vessels with different hatch gear, hatch configurations. So we bring those all into a digital world. It allows us to place the sensors for collision avoidance, for example, in the right spots that maintenance can access them easily, but also we get the coverage that we need. So there's all these different packages that need to be implemented with the balance of plant as a system. With bulk material handling in particular, it's all about smooth, consistent control of multiple assets, right? So you might be able to reclaim at 6,000 tons per hour, but you might have a chute or a transfer point that's rated for 3,000. You have all these different routes. So all that needs to be controlled and optimized. And to do that on site and figure that out is not the right way to do it. You want to do that all virtually, build your routing systems, build your terminal operating systems on top of that, and then integrate all the data from the work packages into that model so it could be tested and pre-commissioned.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for the time today. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.